Boom. Welcome back. Astralis NYYRIKKI. I find this game exciting.
So do I.
What can we expect?
What can we expect? We can expect a really high stakes game, regardless of actually what happens in it. This is going to matter a huge deal the longer we get into this split, actually. I know we're just over the halfway point. It might be a little early to touch in with playoffs and knockouts and all this stuff. But what we see is that these two are currently close competitors to each other. If you lose a game here, you're really falling behind the middle of the pack. And that's something which neither of these teams would like to do, especially Astralis. This is where the real hammer blow falls for them.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think NYYRIKKI are like one step behind all of these tied up teams for 4th, 5th, and 6th place. So they definitely want to start gaining a little bit of ground. For Astralis, I think if this is another loss, it's absolute disaster. I think we've been talking to them, you know, week and week and week and week over and over again after their losses. They feel like it's really tough, especially because they do really believe in the roster. And we do really believe in the roster because they have the caliber of names that they do have in them. One of them has previously won the Nordics as well. Of course, I'm talking about Krispek. And now that I am talking about Krispek, I think this bot lane needs to step up.
Hard opposition to do it against.
And Wendell really need to step up because the strong side for NYYRIKKI, we've talked about this over and over again, is Azitor and Apagnail. And you know what? They win their lanes pretty hard. Whether they're going to transition or not, that laning phase matters because every time Astralis seems to fall behind in any way, shape or form, they can never recover.
And should we look into like top side of Astralis, bot side of NYYRIKKI, junglers taking attention to both of these? They're fighting for the same spot.
They are. I feel like if we're going to talk on top lane, I think we have to talk about the identities of the team because Carlson on the weak side of the map, as Goldborg brought up on the last game day, didn't really impress, kind of needs to learn a little bit more of that poise when you don't have all the resources, when actually you can be a loss condition if you don't handle the dives well. Now, Patoshka has looked good when he's on a comfort champion, which kind of fits the team composition. Now, he's gone towards comfort when it hasn't fit the team composition before. Thinking about the Cho'Gath particularly, sometimes the Jax as well. But, you know, he had the fantastic GP game, but he's not necessarily going to be the person to dunk on a lane super hard in the way that Carlson's going to be out of the game. I think that Carlson actually could ego pick in this matchup and say, you know what, I want to pick a Camille. I want to pick something which will impact the later team fights. That actually might be the win button for Astralis in this game.
I think the biggest why and question mark for me has been not the playmaking from Astralis, because we see when the individuals really do get the resources, they do step up to make the play, such as you mentioned, Carlson. But for me, it's more the team play. I'm seeing Taxer want to do things in the map, especially in the early game, and he just doesn't get the same amount of resources from his lanes. Whether his lanes are pushing or not, we see there's a little bit of a disjointment when it comes to probably the communication or a clear plan in the early game. I'd like to see Astralis with a very clear plan and executing on it, because I think if you give NYYRIKKI the time and the space to scale into the late game, I think their team fights look pretty good.
This is a good time to talk about evolution. I'm looking at you, but yeah, anybody can reply to this.
NLC evolution.
No, the evolution of
kind.
both teams. As we stand, do you think NYYRIKKI have the upper hand, or Astralis from what they show?
I was pretty clear in yesterday's game, well, sorry, the last game day 2 days ago. It always messes me around that. I thought that NYYRIKKI were on the up and up. I think they do understand their team compositions when they get into the mid and late game, when they do get into those team fights. Now, with Astralis immediately banning away some of Patoshka's comfort and what we've seen Invest perform on, question is that going to be destabilized because they can't reach that mid game because their bot lane or their mid lane has been shut down too hard?
Also, it shows to me here a lot of respect towards Patoshka and towards his ability to be able to carry with this particular champions. Also, 12.3, I think I was speaking to Alois, and he said, please bring the pads a little bit sooner because Prevent is going to be so freaking strong that I want to play it. So I don't think we're going to be seeing it anytime soon on Patoshka either.
Let's go, Ari.
This one gives me a lot of the vibes of what you mentioned, Nightmare, that they will want to play towards Carlson, and the Twisted Fate ban says that to me as well. They want to eliminate any sort of global pressure. They want to eliminate the two most played successful champions from the side of Patoshka, and they're like, Carlson has been the alpha and the omega when it comes to our key victories, and we want to use and leverage that again.
I'm not sure I like TF blue side ban though, because I feel like you can play towards the top side a lot easier if you have that yourself. First pick it shouldn't be an issue. Aero has Oh, that changes things. So Zeri's locked in. Let's talk about bot side instead, why don't we?
Or it could be Carlsen.
That's true. That is true.
It's gonna be Chris.
So as much as we have seen Zeri mainly in the 2v2 in bot lane, it can be played in solo lanes if it's in the right matchup. I did say, you know, Carlsen might ego pick. That's a pretty good ego pick.
I've seen this matchup on the top side. I'm not fond of it. I've been on the losing side of it. So on the other side, we have the hyper carry. For Azitur, we've been expecting this. Obviously, Azitur is the carry. What can you pair with Wim?
I'd like to see here. Okay, yeah. I said I was gonna say I would like to see the Lulu rather than the Thresh being picked here, but making sure that you lock in the Zinzao, you don't mind getting either or because you already have one place in front of you that will hold the line for you if you're a failure and will defend for you. So even if you end up with like the more squishy version, you don't mind.
Well, what I will say about the Astralis, and if it is a Thresh locked in, I do kind of want the Thresh because if you have Gravitum and you root the Zeri into the hook, that's just a dead Eddie carry. They are off the board at that point. We've talked about kind of like the lost condition for Zeri being point and click CC, lock them down, they don't get to outrun your skill shots that way. Something like the Leona can do a similar kind of thing, and you can also try and engage them from a little longer way, but you do need something to pair up with the Aphelios to key into that Gravitum route particularly.
Astralis is still flexing this pick because Zeri can go to the top side, Gwen can go to the jungle.
Both, actually.
This is really good for them.
This is really good for them. Gwen can be flexed in 3 positions, even though we have predominantly seen her in the jungle and the top lane, not so much in mid lane anymore. But Zeri can play all 3 lanes at this point. So I feel like Astralis are playing the blue side cards really well, not showing yet what's going to happen on the map.
In terms of bans, we have nothing so far. They're taking their sweet time looking into this.
Of course, it's
finally
Carlsen.
taking Carlsen away from the table. I mean, he plays a lot more than only the Renekton as well. So he can still go for the Jackson, go for the split push.
This is quite interesting because obviously we see that there's potential for 2 champions going top lane. NYYRIKKI are just like, no, you're not having Renekton. You're not getting duped by this. I mean, I think that it is comfort, like we were saying, and it does work pretty well against a lot of fighters as well, because you're trying to play front to back, and then you get hit by a Cho'Gath Q, and then just you die horribly.
It didn't work for either of these top laners.
I haven't been a big fan of the Cho'Gath from Toshka. I understand the idea. In execution, it hasn't worked. I'm kind of glad to see it removed in this case.
For his own good.
Yeah, a little bit.
Another duelist on the top side, so Seth is removed, taking away a few guns from Carlsen. I do believe you have a lot more to play with, so I don't know if focusing on Carlsen is specific or if you want to pick something specific that wouldn't do well against those two.
So there's picks also like the Fiora and the Camille still up and available. You also have the Gwen who can play towards the tops, and you have AD plus AP and they can play both towards the top side. But I feel like NYYRIKKI have a pretty good, well-rounded composition. If they pick something like a Victor right here, I think it's going to benefit their team comp even more, right? Because Aero has played a bunch of Victor. He can protect the Aphelios with her together with the Leona, the Zinzao. And in all, NYYRIKKI have a pretty good engage and disengage. I love that too.
Yeah,
because
like
if they want to play towards Carlsen, then you have the semi-global presence with the Rise.
And what I do really like from NYYRIKKI's second round bans is though it's not necessarily banning out the hard carries, it's banning out the carries which can also be kind of frontline off engage, right? You got the Renekton double, you got the set, everything really. Now, if you're going to go towards something like a Fiora, you don't have that. You don't bring the same amount of pseudo utility to kind of set up team fights in the same way that you'd like to. Now, something like a Syndra stymies that a little bit from the mid lane, but you chuck either Zeri or Syndra top, or Zeri or the Gwen top side. You don't have that.
Gwen top, okay. Interesting. Okay. It's a pretty I think like Gwen is like a pretty blind pickable champion, same as Aatrox was a couple of seasons ago. I'm just wondering what NYYRIKKI is gonna try to play forward towards.
Not Jackson to the Trundle, hopefully.
Because right here, I just really like the fact they have a bunch of setup towards the bot side of the map. Tryndamere has been a pick that has been almost permanently banned against Petoshka, if not permanently, in a lot of their games.
That's a good point, yeah.
And we finally get to see it. I think his Riven and his Tryndamere have been 2 of the champions that have been permanently banned against Petoshka, and now we get to see it.
Now, the thing about Tryndamere is that Gwen walks up to you and pops W, and Tryndamere is like, well, all of my damage is happening in melee range anyway. I don't give a rat's. So I think that's perfectly fine. I think you have a winning 4v4 from NYYRIKKI unless Taxa has an incredible game. But wait, what's that? I'm getting a call. There's a disturbance in the force. My people need me.
Amira?
Well, Trouble, final thoughts on this game.
Get out of the table. You won't. Come on.
Final
Got
thoughts.
scared from the Tryndamere, man. What can I say? I really like what NYYRIKKI have. I think they're putting their eggs into the Patoshka basket again. They want to play towards the top side of the map, making sure that the Tryndamere does get ahead. If he does get ahead, he can dive into the backline. They've got a bunch of peel, and I just really would like to see what Patoshka can do with this Tryndamere, because this champion is a very straightforward champion. He's either going to split push to victory, or he's going to try to find a flank and misposition the opponent ADC. So I think this is bread and butter for NYYRIKKI. They're playing for team fights and something that they have succeeded in.
Is it revenge? Is it redemption? It is Astralis versus NYYRIKKI. We don't know the score, but we know they're planning something on the caster's desk. So take it away.
I'm here, Sam. I made it.
Summoning rituals complete. We must regain our powers and get casting as magicians and commentators, because that's what casters are. I'm glad you made it. The psychic sibling link still in place, clearly. I just missed you, man. That's really why I brought you over.
Oh, that's very cute of you. I just saw, like, it's not quite the bat signal, but it's
yeah, it's the equivalent. Yeah, it's the hap. Good. Do we have a hap?
I was wondering if Astralis had the same thing for Goldborg and just like slap, he's there. But yes.
I think he's Danish, not like their superhero. I mean, is Goldborg the Danish superhero? Is that what it is? He's actually the Danish Dark Knight. I love it. Well, we're on to the Rift, though, and we've had a couple quite intriguing options that you both talked about you all talked about, rather, on the desert. Zeri first pick, it's into the Aphelios Leona. The Tryndamere last pick for Patoshka into that Gwen, and Trundle in towards the top side. I feel those are some pretty distinct matchups there, which we'll need to be keeping our eyes on.
Now, this is the question of, we know that Zeri is strong. I have personally questions whether she is first pick strong, like first round on Blue 1. Now, we are seeing it, of course, with the Nautilus. Lots of ability to find those engages. Hook missing at level 1. Of course, that's one of the things which Nautilus does the best. But into so much targeted CC with the Jin Zhao getting that Q3, being able to dash onto them. The Rise roots, the Aphelios and Leona both really just bearing down on you. Zeri is not going to have a very free-firing game to really start popping off. I think Chrisberg has to really find his angles well. Needs to be on the upper end of that kind of outcome to get the most out of this pick, because that's where a lot of your damage is going to come from as Astralis.
At least for the side of Astralis, they do have, the Trundle, the Gwen, the Nautilus, who can play Disruptor in the front line, even if they're not necessarily what you'd call straight tanks. They are pretty good at getting into a brawl with the other pro line. And if Chrisberg can bide his time, the rundown potential, the skirmish potential is still pretty good from Zeri. It's just not the freest game ever, I completely agree. On the other side for NYYRIKKI, I mean, they've got a strong 4v4 with Aphelios and the Rise, and then, Tryndamere gets to have his way in the side lane, I feel, the later this game goes. No one really wants to duel Tryndamere come 2-3 items, I imagine.
That's my read on it as well. It seems like Tryndamere has typically beaten out the Gwen in the 1v1, at least when it comes to a couple of matches. Aero is doing really well in this mid lane matchup, Just, I wasn't going to talk about it too much, but he's dodged 2 out of the 3 keys which have been thrown out already, trading with the corrupting pots, hitting a lot back there, dodges another one.
There you go.
Aero is doing this is towards the upper end of what I would expect to see from this matchup.
Nice stuff. Finally gets hit by a key. The moment you speak about it, there you go. But it was a decent ratio of hits to no hits there. Worth noting as well that...
Good click.
Indeed. Yeah. Never mind the good and bad clicks. I want to talk about the good and bad wards, because there was a level 1 ward placed on Desidere's red buff as well. So that does mean that Astralis have got knowledge of where NYYRIKKI's jungler is pathing. Now to see whether, of course, they can make much of it. Junglers are pathing to opposite sides of the map as well, so Taxa might be looking to cause some trouble for this Tryndamere up towards the top side. I just don't know how viable that would be.
I mean, right now you see the state of the top side. Unlikely to see anything coming back out of there unless Patoshka, we have faulted his lane management at points. If it does come out into like a bouncing back out of a soft push, slow push rather, maybe there is an angle there. Unlikely to happen though. Carlson getting in the way of crash dive in, and Patoshka is just going to collect that at tower.
Waiting for that one to happen is playing it a little bit slow with junglers passing the other way. And of course, Gwen does have pretty good early lane control with the scissors and the skip and slash. But Taxa has turned up and might even think about a level 2 dive here.
There's an ignite. Okay, fair play. I mean, they have a lot of early damage. I think are they just trying to zone him off? He doesn't have any rage.
He's got a little bit of rage now, but that's a lot of damage coming through. He's got a bit of a heal. They don't burn the ignite, but he has burned the Ghost, has Patoshka in a difficult position here.
As well, so that's actually a cannon denied, which is still a decent amount of gold. They don't deny the XP. It's a minor victory. Trundle doesn't necessarily need the most optimum pathing, particularly early on. Once you hit level 3 on the Trundle, you're pretty ready to fight. You don't worry about falling behind and farm too much. I think that's an okay look in. At least they didn't commit to the dive and lose horribly. That would have been worst case scenario.
And effectively, what you do get is that ghost for free, right? And that's quite a big deal. It's one of the bigger trading tools for Trinder to make some of those extended skirmishes more his favor.
You know, what might be more valuable, though, is having the Zeri shut down very early on.
Yes.
There's a Rise roam, there's the Sidere in the brush. There's 2 people under tower versus 4 people.
Here we go. Flash for the root. It's going to come through. Abagnale taking a lot of damage, though. Get first blood, but that will be traded back shortly after. It will be that 2-for-1 trade, though, as both bot laners fall for Astralis.
Now the question is, how quickly can you push this in? Because pushing its cannon wave into tower is actually quite a time-consuming thing. Doesn't look like it's going to get that overly quickly, but they do have that Infernum to get that into tower. So this is about as easy as you like. Flash in for the point and click. And Wendell, though they do get good value out of their own CC under tower, it's not quite enough. I do appreciate the fact that Abagnale understands that he's going down, takes out the extra shot, and gets an extra auto in to maximize the damage efficiency.
And of course, Zeri did pick up that kill that went under tower, whereas unfortunately, perhaps NYYRIKKI, Abagnale picks up one of them. Desiree probably not the worst person to have. The big difference, though, of course, is the fact you lost a fair amount of that wave. You did get the better reset, even if Zeri does at least have enough money for Sheen.
I see what the big plan was. It was this, man, we lost a cannon at the top turret. We must make them lose theirs. Except it's a little bit of a more involved effort. It does require some blood to be spilled for that eventuality. And as we see, that top side where that first cannon was missed, Ptoska pushing in that wave and has evened their own farm disadvantage out.
Yeah, Aero now having taken a few more of those cues by the looks of his health bar, now deciding now is a chance to reset. It's looking to get something like another bit of a tier or whatever, and going to get back towards the mid lane.
Yeah, I have to say, when it comes to Syndra's hitting stuff early, Showmaker really showed the world last year once again what happens when you are so accurate with your skill shots. We talked about Xerath actually in the NLC kind of being less of a good laning pick into Corki because actually just the W's are missing level 1, as we can see though. Because Crest missed those Qs very early on, maybe that was what caused Aero to be able to get towards that bot side. Obviously forced him out on that next back, does have a CS advantage at this point now, but it's important to track that kind of pressure in lane because that's where the individual mechanics come out and lead to unexpected eventualities.
And for Astralis, I do need to see them have a better early game, all honesty. Yes, they've got some decent scaling with like the Gwen is obviously more of a slightly later game carry, but the point is, Astralis fought back well on Monday. They really did, but they were miles and miles and miles behind X7, and I need to see them like have a stable early game so they're not having to play around some of some like last chance the Alamo. Never mind, last chance the Alamo. And Wendell's gonna flash. We're gonna get knocked up mid dredge line, and Aero picks up another kill. The moment I ask Astralis to have a better early game, this is not what I was talking about.
This is against one of the worst early game teams in our league. NYYRIKKI coming out all guns blazing. Love what Desiderae did there in terms of holding that Q3. We've seen it a lot, both in the LEC and the NLC. Sometimes Jinzhao just has to sit there, get that auto attack reset, waits for you to flash away. It's not like he had that own escape himself. Follows the E, cancels the hook, and shuts down Wendell. I mean, that's a bit of an overstep, but well optimized by Desiderae to get the kill.
I do want to shout out the likes of Desiderae and Aero as well, who I think a lot of us behind the scenes on the cast desk have said, well, I've been a bit quiet, honestly, this split.
Turret shots there.
Does a little bit, but he's going to be all right unless he's thinking about a really aggressive dive. In fact, he is just going to go straight at this. Good call. There's the Undying Rage. Can Carlson heal his way through it? It's going to be bloody close. Flash, and he gets the kill. The Ignite will make sure it goes back as a 1-for-1, but Carlson will lose a lot of that wave to turrets.
I was about to say, like, wow, he's really going for that turret dive. Ends up going for the all-in. It's a 1-for-1. Summoners used on both sides, and now we get to see it on our screens yet again. So obviously with Tryndamere very early on, if you max out that Rage Bar, your crit chance goes really high through the roof, and I think Carlson does a really good job to use the tower for that extra bit of terrain to make sure that actually the extra summoner did have to be used, was timing out that spinning slash. So good optimization, I use that word a lot. But either way, both these top laners getting the most out of their kits to either get away from that first play or, of course, started with a crit chance.
Of course, I think if you're Ptoska, you take that because obviously it was Gwen's wave that was under tower. So you're happy you're happy to force some of that loss there. It's a slight advantage. Of course, you don't get out scot-free, but that's the kind of aggression you like to see from Tryndamere's.
And that stops in yet again with actually what are we expecting from these teams very early on. You know, we've kind of thought about M&M being a really good early game team, Dusty when they're on a good team, really good game, blowing people out of the water. NYYRIKKI and Astralis talent haven't particularly excited us in the same way. NYYRIKKI, normally we wait for them to turn online around that mid game where they get 2-3 items, they start team fighting with well-oiled compositions. But it seems right now they've put their best foot forward, and Astralis will have to hope to fight back into it with some power spikes, particularly around that Zeri.
And it's looking a bit rough for the Zeri right now. Lost on the plate, being forced away from this wave. And this is something that when both of us were talking to people, well, how do you deal with Zeri? One of the things you can do is shut her down in the 2v2, and they've managed to do that pretty well with NYYRIKKI right now. Desideri made another roam down here, forced a really awkward step away from the tower. They're going to just go straight for the dive. There's no teleports available, just going straight in. Moonlight Vigil comes through. Crescent Guard is there, and that will allow Abagnale to get out. Stopwatch is the final tower shot. It's a double for Azator, and NYYRIKKI having a stellar early game here in game 1.
Honestly, hats off of that Cowboys skull to NYYRIKKI, because they have come out and they have reassessed what they're doing in the early game. They have a clear identity of what they want to achieve, and they've come out and done just that. Plenty of gold now onto the Aphelios. This is how it happens again. You can see that Chrisberg and Wendell looking for that level 6, trying to buy enough time to get to it. They get themselves the Zeri ultimate, but that's not a Blitzcrank ultimate. You're not silencing them under turret. This is also the press the attack. Aphelios 2 gets the auto attack reset, or effectively the same with the Calibrum ultimate and the Q. Huge amounts of burst with those resets on that empowered mark. Zeri goes down very, very easily.
And now you have a hyper-fed Azator Aphelios at 2-0-2, up 20 CS, got themselves 3 plates.
Sounds like a horror story, Sam.
It is a bit of a horror story, and you've already seen that Potoska's willing to at least trade 1-for-1 under the enemy tower. This is looking really good for NYYRIKKI and Astralis. You are on a 7-loss streak. Not to put it in any more frank words, because the results speak for themselves, unfortunately. Yes, we've seen some improvements from this team, but when you are falling down this far in the early game and trying to fight your way back in later, where you've been struggling with objective setups anyway, this is problematic, and they need to stabilize, as we're only 10 minutes in and it's a 3,000 gold lead.
So now we're starting to, I mean, not to play, not to kind of seek that one eventuality, but how do Astralis actually get back into this? Now, they do have decent pick potential. Nautilus, Syndra, Trundle Pillar. We can look to see if NYYRIKKI overstep in some of their rotations. Maybe they don't track some vision. Maybe they do end up getting a miracle hook landed onto them. But that's what I'm looking for. But even with that, Windermere is hard to do that too. Aphelios has so much gold. And of course, they're just adding insult to injury.
Campsite.
Ultimates are available, but not to Wendell. And looking for it again.
I'm just looking like Desideri's practically bought a caravan. He's brought a timeshare in the bot lane right now. He's going back in. Chrisberg has to spark surge over his own tower. Like, what is this? I'm really loving this from the Shinta. That's exactly what you want to do. It's the win condition.
Credit to them. They know what they want. Era was roaming down. Herald's been put into mid lane. This is going to be a... There you go. Looking for the picks as well. Forcing out both summoners from Era in that mid lane. But NYYRIKKI, for the first time, swinging a miss. Gold goes back over to Astralis in the mid jungle 2v2. It helps them alleviate some of the woes that they had before. But that is a very important moment for Astralis, because if you die for a third time there, I would be willing to call lights out at that point. You don't have an AD carry to play around. You have an Aphelios which is so hyper-fed, but Astralis, credit to them on the flip side of this, avoiding the worst-case scenario.
And at the very least, off-screen there, you saw Taxa did secure that Herald get to put it mid, as we saw. And that was kind of the trade for, Taxa with Desideri going on holiday to the bot lane. Getting that beautiful campsite down there, enjoying his time. But it just means he's away from the bills. He's away from the admin of, farming his jungle, checking out those neutral objectives.
Once again, they're just fishing yet again. That'll be another okay. Wow, we've gone fishing in the bot lane as a holiday. Is that really what you do on Summoner's Rift? They're like, see the sights of Barren Pit. Go on a cruise down Botside River. See the mighty scuttle crab.
Avoid the evil duck that's in the river. We've all seen it.
We don't speak its name.
We don't speak its name. Desideri will secure a second dragon here. Of course, that is the joy of having all that bot lane pressure.
What's your bet on the Soul? Okay, well, my bet's on Cloud Soul. There it is.
It was too late to get it out.
I was trying to get it out soon enough.
It was too quick.
Okay, so
I'm sorry.
This is actually really important when you have so many low-range carries on the NYYRIKKI side. They have 2 dragons. Astralis really don't want to give up their soul now, particularly when Zeri is trying to run around with very quick movement speed too. Reducing that movement speed differential could be quite problematic on a number of different ways for Astralis. So NYYRIKKI in with a decently high roll actually out of the remaining dragons. I like this Cloud Soul in this game.
I think I agree. Actually, looking at, I'm just having a quick look at those ultimates and going, no, Tryndamere, excellent.
Low range.
Leona, not
low range. Rise, low range.
Bad, yeah.
Aphelios is everything, so we don't really talk about that so much.
For all people who go, yeah, no, you love Cloud Soul, that's great. And it's not like they're shy on damage either or anything like that. So I think they're pretty happy with that. And when you're trying to run down, a Gwen without a Ghost or anything, feel like particularly Patoshka very happy with that. You're right.
Speaking of that Gwen without Ghost, look at that CS advantage, which has worked its way up into that top
Oh,
side.
Lord.
Now, we talked about Carlsen not really succeeding when they've been behind, when they've been on weak side. This is actually a fairly isolated 1v1. It was that trade of 1-for-1 in the early game, and actually they got themselves the one bit of service from their jungler up towards that top side, and they had that one on call. But ever since then, Patoshka has been the one determining the fate of this lane, and he's been succeeding at it.
He's just been proxy farming. You just saw him there, and you know this is when Desideret hasn't even looked at topside, never mind not really invested there. He's been bot lane so much
So
this
let's see
game.
what's happening here. There's actually a decent pick potential from the side of Astralis. See if the pillar comes out, looking to catch him rotation.
Abagnale's going to get caught there, but not much more coming through. He's tanky enough with the Eclipse, they don't think about it. Azator's roamed up as well, and now Astralis in a spot of bother. Solar Flare comes out, and that's slightly unusual trade of summoners, or not summoners, just abilities there, really.
Yeah, but I look at that and Azator, you caught that? You're very much caught.
Really unfortunate rotation, and that's a shutdown going on to Zeri.
Okay, it doesn't happen in the mid lane, but the catch and rotation does affect someone on NYYRIKKI. The first part of that actually looked like a massive miscommunication. Looks like we're going into the replay. I really hope nothing happens on live, but I mean, Azator just seems like NYYRIKKI, they lose a little spot of vision. We kind of said, yeah, pick potential from the side of Astralis is probably where they're looking at, and he is still dead. Of course, Williams get back out onto the map, but Astralis at least leveraging a strong part of their composition to keep themselves within touching distance, although it's starting to slip away.
No, it's gone. They managed to hold it at this 2,000 difference at least, and that was necessary goal going on to Chrisberg, who had been put that ways behind, as we've seen. But that's now 2 kills apiece there. It's still down a bit of CS, but it's still a reasonable threat at this point. Honestly, interesting, as you mentioned, the pressure has honestly switched more towards Patoshka, who has got that lead we called out. That second Herald is spawned, and a little bit of control went down for NYYRIKKI. I'll be interested to see whether they do actually want to roam over and think about securing it.
Honestly, with Patoshka being so strong, you kind of just want to take all hands off of the Tryndamere and let him do his own work in the 1v1. You don't really need to help a Tryndamere. What Tryndamere allows you to do is call other people to his lane and then win a mismatched fight somewhere else. Honestly, with this kind of advantage, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts winning 1v2s at some point. But because maybe NYYRIKKI kind of see that eventuality as well, they say, yeah, maybe we just leave Tryndamere on the top side. It means they're not in position to fight something like a Herald, and it's going to be an objective secured for Astralis, and this potentially allows them to buy themselves a safe haven somewhere on the map.
They do secure that second Herald. First use of the Herald early on in the game, managed to get the mid tower pretty low. They've rotated their bot lane towards this top tower, and they're going to have Trundle roam up as well. Instead, they're going to flash on Crest, who hasn't got that many places to go, flashing towards the river, but it'll be a flash, audacious charge, and that will secure the kill onto Crest. They've got a Realm Warp, which they'll use to get their jungler way back to the tower.
I didn't see which direction that was going. I was like, where's that going? Is that going further in? It just like zips over to the other side. I'm like, sweet, cool.
Send me to the Raptors, I must farm. Rek'Sai no longer has the farm alarm, so Ryze has to do it for me.
Desiderate's, as for caught out alone in the spot side, Carlsen going in,
He's
but
got
that's a Desideraate there.
That's very deep. They don't have the Hallowed Mist anymore, doesn't have any more scissors, gets knocked up by the 3 Talon Strike, and Azator secures the kill too far from Carlsen.
Now, I have to say, if I was Carlsen, I would be going for that kill too, because again, you need to have something to break the spine of this phase of play which NYYRIKKI have put you through. It's just not quite at the same time, the right timing. If you have another 2 seconds, maybe you do end up getting that. Not to be the case, you lose on the other side of the map. Now, Patoshka is on lock, baby.
And, you know, you saw they switched their bot lane to the top side to try and maybe corral this Tryndamere away from the weak tower. It didn't work. They will secure an objective bounty and a tower in mid lane, which does keep the gold a little bit closer still, but it's still a significant lead right now for NYYRIKKI. There's going to be this third Drake spawning very shortly. I'm assuming Desideraate rejoins the Grain very shortly, and he will be coming towards that bottom side river in short order, one imagines, but first things first, it's cleaning up this mid wave.
Okay, so let's see what happens around this 4v4 in the mid. Lots of pick potential, as you're saying, from Astralis. And Desiderate's caught without ult.
He is caught without ult, doesn't have the flash either, but managed to get away. Abagnale's going in very deep, gets the stun onto Chris, focus put over the back, but he will die. Wendell is being ignited, surely survives just about, and does so. So it's a 1 for none in favor of Astralis, but Patoshka has now roamed down here. Remember, Carlsen would have to teleport in to support. Chrisberg also very low, so the health bar advantage for NYYRIKKI, even if they did lose the man.
No, but this is the thing, right? Because Dragon is still up. The Astralis, even with taking down the support, do not have the HP bars with the numbers advantage to contest this. That's going to be soul point very early into the game for NYYRIKKI. at least it's some gold back for the side of Astralis. It's not a shutdown because I believe Agnel did, well, of course he died in that initial dive down on that bot side. Options to take Dragon, I guess. Incinerate can secure that one. And this is important though, because actually that mid lane turret was not taken with the Herald. Top lane gets that Beastie charging it down instead. So that's another objective bounty. And Astralis, once again, finding themselves, even though they've had a pretty dire early game, within touching distance.
They are managing to trade back in places where they can. You know, that's the tower of the mid lane, we called it, to get the kill there. That's some necessary gold into Carson's back pocket, who is facing down an increasingly exorbitant CS lead. I hesitate to look at that right now. In fact, might be worth having a look over of the gold if we can, because I think that's going to be an eye-watering difference in the top side. Sure, we'll get a look at that at some point in the future, but right now it is NYYRIKKI dealing with this Tryndamere, who's going to shove it even further.
That's the thing, right? Because you have that passive, the Rage Bar just completely stacked up. For the side of Tryndamere, that crit chance is really damn high. You can see that there's extra crit chance with that Zeal brought in by Patoshka too. If that is maxed out, because you're 2 levels down, Ignite or no, you are not winning that trade.
Patoshka has to back away though, because the rest of Astralis are all in their blue side jungle, looking to see whether Patoshka might overextend and give over some of that important shutdown gold. And he will be forced back up the river at least somewhat. Aero also coming back onto the river. Remember, that is a Ghost Rise. It's not the teleport. It has become more common on the champion. A little bit more dueling potential, of course, with your Realm Warp. You can still get around the map, so not worrying about that. And instead, the Mocking Shout comes down.
He has decided to 1v1.
Yeah, there's a 1v1 coming through. That's a lot of damage coming down. There's no Undying Rangers yet. It's going to come through now, and just the Gale Force auto eviscerates Gwen.
And it's okay if he forces ult early with something, whether he has to tank up a turret shot. You do have a decent amount of ability as that Gwen, but he's got more with the Gale Force. So Hurricane Call on the Zeri. That's, I don't know why I was stepping over. I think I was like, oh, that's just horrible. Let's talk about something else. I don't want to talk about
Zeri,
the
yes.
Okay, we've reached 2 items on the Zeri, maybe a power spike to play around, but the fight has just not come to them.
Everfrost, the flash forward from Aero, who tanks up the tower as well. Chrisberg's come down. Aero trying to stay alive. He's not taking tower shots. He is. Wait, he's still going to get out there because he's tanky enough. Desiderate will surely fall in trade. The Moonlight Vigil comes through. Chrisberg's going to try chasing up with the amount of damage from Azure. He's just obscene. He dashes too far forward, and Azure throws all the chakrams and turns himself into a blender.
You cannot engage into turrets. We talked about this in the initial dive. Aphelios has to press the attack. If you allow him to get those marks onto you, oh my word, he puts out the damage. Suddenly, what was a manageable lead turns into a cascade of finances for NYYRIKKI, and it's all off the back of insane chakram play from that Aphelios.
And you can see the dive here. The moment that orb is missed, it's a pretty easy rope for Aero, and he's just so tanky at this point in the game.
I actually, so we kind of play-by-play the first part of that, but you see 4 chakrams already, puts down a turret. Every time that autos, that's another one down. 2 autos from extended range. That's more. Gets in with the extra ult too. He's maxed out all of his chakrams throughout this play. And that is such absurd damage. You might have a 2-item spike on the Zeri, but maybe just don't walk into the weapon management of Azure.
Absolutely, and credit to Abagnale there as well, going, I'm just going to flash on your face and prevent you from using that move speed to try and outplay us with range. And the moment you're stunned up, it's easy pickings for Azador to just literally turn you into...
This guy is so good at this champion. So good at this champion. They're looking to see if they can run further down with... oh, Sidori does have the flash. I was just wondering if he was...
debating it.
Blocker at that point. But yeah, I mean, now you start to see why. As much as we talk about, oh, if you don't have the CC for Zeri, she's going to start running you down. Well, that's always been the case about Aphelios. If he's not caught in the initial engage, best start running. You can see the turrets down again with that Calibrum.
Realm warping out, potentially. They do get away, because of course it's not Rise that was interrupted. And all the while, look at Patoshka on your minimap. He's onto Inhibitor Turret. That was a 5v4, and they're about to lose an Inhibitor Turret at 22 minutes.
So maybe this is why we see the Tryndamere band away so much against this. Patoshka is so casually walking across the map, taking 1v1s. And the difference on this player between his comfort picks, which fit a composition, and his comfort picks, which is kind of shoehorned in, has been massive. Baron start from NYYRIKKI, putting the foot down onto the accelerator. That pedal has hit the floor. Patoshka roaming back up, and teleports are coming now in response.
They are teleporting in. That's going to be the knock-on with Attacks, who's flashing away, has got the Subjugate down, but trying to survive. It's supposed to be a Trundle-favored matchup. Doesn't feel like it this far in the game. He's got the domain to try and escape, but Cress hits Wind become lightning onto him and gets audaciously charged from somewhere else. That's a shutdown onto Patoshka, courtesy of Chrisberg, who can start firing off the burst fires, going, but it's a root! Snared in place, and Zeri is once again brought low. Zorn put in its place, unfortunately, and it's a double to Aero, and then it's going to move right back to the Baron, even if they're down the Tryndamere.
Oh, it's an off-camera demise for Patoshka, then, which gives Astralis the boldness, the bravery to try and turn something into a game-saving play for them. Might have just turned into the final nail in this Astralis coffin. They could well be headed onto a 2-8 record from this series of plays. As we see down here, Tryndamere has found his way down here and just gets CC'd to death. Wendell and Chrisberg finding it out here. It takes 3 of them, though. It takes 3 of them. Nautilus is out of that fight. While it's happening, you still only traded 1-for-1 across everything. I understand that Carlson wants to keep the... Carlson and Chrisberg want to keep their stacks up on stuff like the Conqueror, stuff like that lethal tempo, go in for the extended trade, but engaging into a Rise and a Aphelios without your full array of abilities, very dangerous prospect, and it bites them.
And Patoshka got a kill onto Nautilus in 1v3, and all the while, 4 members were collapsing on what remained of Astralis and forcing them out there.
And now there's an Ocean Soul, there's a Rise ult, there's maybe another play.
Chrisberg's in trouble. He's got a blast cone, so should be able to get over the wall, but he's going to be rooted in place with
Patoshka's there!
And Patoshka's there already. And the Barbarian King secures his kill onto Zorn's last hope. Taken down. Abagnale is questioning what's going on in this game, and Astralis going to try and find something, but it's onto Desiderate. Azador throws out the ultimate. It forces the Hallowed Mist. They're going to keep shoving in here. It's Crescendum and Calibrum. It's another engage. The Audacious Charge secures that one for Aero with a little help of some overloads courtesy of his own kit. They'll secure another tower. They're going to keep showing. Patoshka is in the base, and there's nothing you can do to stop him. Sound the alarms. Rome has fallen. The Barbarians are here.
It's not even 25 minutes, it's just ticking over now. How impressive has the development of this NYYRIKKI roster been? You've got one last hope, you've got one last try to stop this rampage.
They brush off the defeat on Monday, and they stamp down authoritatively in this game. NYYRIKKI moved to 4 and 6.
I feel a little better about the power rankings now. Just a little tad. That was... You know, we use a lot of hyperbole.
We do.
We'd say about, oh, they were destroyed, they were demolished. This was an absolute masterclass from NYYRIKKI about how to run away with a mid-game lead. I am very, very impressed with this team. Now, of course, on the other side, Astralis talent obviously won't be feeling the same. That's an 8th loss in a row.
8 losses in a row, and maybe we've learned why Patoshka's Tryndamere is banned. Who knew? What I do know is that we have to toss to a break. When we come back, we've still got some interviews, so don't go anywhere.
And welcome back to the post game. And what a fast game that was between NYYRIKKI and Astralis. And to me, this is the spicy moments on the second half of the split when you see those revenges, especially from NYYRIKKI's side, who started off really slow at the beginning of the split, but now they got it back versus Astralis. And I want to know how that felt. So I'm going to interview and talk a little bit with Bagnali. I hope you are with me. Hello?
Hello,
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
You're doing really fine, aren't you? Okay, so you picked Leona with versus Zeri, like the bottom side picks. Were you guys comfortable versus that matchup?
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable, and also I was playing versus Vandal, so it was kinda more easier than normal scenario, you know?
And you got a lot of attention from your jungler to the bot side. Was this like a pre-plan where you have like Shinzao constantly diving on the Zeri, not allowing her to go to the late game, or just a way to get your AD carry, Aphelios monster, to just hyper carry in mid game?
I mean, we just played for bot lane in early game and wanted to collect the Rex, and we did. Then they just come and int, and we kill them, that's the...
Also, the Tryndamere was available for the first time for, I don't know how long it was. Is this something that Astralis did not pay attention, did not respect? How did you guys feel when you saw Tryndamere open for the top side?
I mean, I said this is going to be free game, guys. Let's just don't mess up, and we will get easy win with Tryndamere top on Petosco, you know? So I think they didn't respect, or I don't know what they think.
There was almost no attention to the mid side. Like the mid lane felt like the top side, like an island, nobody going there. Was the mid laner also aware that he needed to play for the side lanes and just hold the game as much as possible?
Yeah, actually in early game, we just wanted to secure our mid lane with our vision. And after mid game, we have two split laner with Ryze and Tryndamere. So that's all.
Bagnal, I gotta ask you, this is the second half of the split. You got the revenge versus Astralis. How do you feel specifically after this victory?
Actually, nothing special, because I know it. We will stomp them, because they look very bad, and we are going to improve day by day. And also, Vandal didn't know about me before game, because he asked me to who am I, and I wanted to show who am I. I think now he knows better about me.
You should use some gloves, man, before you throw those punches. That is a hard one to reckon with. Okay, congratulations. Before we go any further, like my last question is, what is the team that you want to play most on the second half of the split?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat? I didn't get it.
What is the team that you want to play against on the second half of the split?
I think X7.
XL?
X7.
X7. Why?
Yeah.
Can you tell me why?
Because I like cussing a lot, and I wanna match versus him again and do my best, of course, and my team.
Okay, I like it. Congratulations on this victory, and good luck for the next week.
Yeah, bye guys. Follow us.
Have a nice one. That was harsh. He was going hard, and I need assistance. I need assistance, Treble. Join me because,
Hey,
you know, I boxed back in the days, and
the temperature went up with that one.
no gloves on this guy. No gloves. What can
you
we...
on a date?
Okay, obviously NYYRIKKI going strong on this Astralis matchup, saying that they felt Astralis were weak, but there's more to this story, isn't it?
It's just a really sad scenario for Astralis, right? Because even though they have the caliber of players, they have it going on, like, you know, they have so much experience. And like, if you look at Denmark, I know that Goalbox says all the time, like, Danish players are freaking fantastic.
They are.
A lot of esports, right? And especially League of Legends as well. And having the top of the notch Danish players in your team and bringing in a 16-year-old prodigy that's smashing the top lane, this should technically be a recipe for success.
So I now have Chrisbert with me, and I want to help me talking with him. Hello, Chrisbert, are you there?
Hello.
Hello. So rough game, especially because you won versus NYYRIKKI on the first week. I believe it was the first week. And now you guys got defeated by them. This is a tough one to take in, isn't it?
Yeah, we kind of... This was our comeback, right? So yeah, this one hurts.
Chris, I wanted to personally join this interview and talk with you because I've known you since 2019 when you won the Nordics back then. We went out together, we celebrated all together. And I know that you're somebody who tries really hard to improve every single time and you want to win and you've got this in your blood. Talk to me a little bit about your journey in 2022, particularly with Astralis, because I feel like your roster and your team is so good on paper. Can you give us any insight on what has been going wrong?
I mean, we are just not transitioning scrims at all. Like the most basic stuff becomes hard. We shut down. We just. It's weird to say because we're 4 veterans, but we are shutting down when it matters.
So is it a communication issue that's going on? Is it maybe the early game plan that is not being unfolded properly?
Oh, that's a lot of mistakes. A lot of bad mistakes in lane. A lot of calls not being called off. A lot of misunderstandings, miscommunication. Yeah, I mean, you could see it today. It wasn't good.
Yeah, if I may, I was looking into the champion select, looking into the composition, and you guys picked Trundle versus Shinzao, which to me is like a really good pick, but I didn't quite see the Trundle, and the bot line was like dive after dive after dive, and I didn't see not only assistance, but also a way to pressure on the other side of the map. So you're talking about communication and decision. Are you guys lacking a voice? Do you want someone to step up and get that voice in? What do you feel now as a player that the team needs right now in order to actually get success?
I mean, I think if this was a scrim, that voice would be there. So we just need to get our shit together and stop being nervous when it matters, I think.
One last question for you, Trouble.
It's not a question. I just want to wish the best of luck to Chris and obviously Astralis as well. We want to see you guys bounce back. And I want to see that cockiness when you came back last year and you said, you know what, let them freaking dive me. I've had this in my screams 50 times and it comes back up to bite them. So I just want to see that, Chris, and I wish you best of luck in the future.
Me too. Have a nice one, mate.
Thank you.
Obviously,
it's rough, man.
Really
it's
rough. Because you have a lot of experience on the team, just as he said, and not getting results, even with like a really good rookie as well, something is happening.
I think the only thing that he said that I found really daunting was that in scrims, we do really well, we're vocal, we understand what are the mistakes, we can transition into official games, and suddenly the voice is not there anymore.
Yeah.
So when the leading voice is just no longer there, you don't necessarily know how you want to play the game, how you want to transition. If there's no communication, there's not teamwork. And I think this is what really shows on Astralis that the teamwork is really lacking right
Let's
now.
talk about the game. I do know we have a lot of special plays to highlight, specifically on the bot side, if I'm not mistaken. There we go.
They're mainly all about the bot lane, right? You see, we mentioned as well, Aziter and Abagnail are the strong side for NYYRIKKI. And honestly, Desidera made it possible for them. You know, they dive Chris and Wendell, not 1, not 2, but 3 times. And honestly, the other strong side for NYYRIKKI is going to be Petoshka. And even though here, a lot of people might say, okay, this dive though was very pointless. It wasn't, because Carlson had just used teleport to get back into his lane, and he gets dived, missing on so much experience as well. If I'm not wrong, he loses the cannon minion right there as well. Of course, this one's going to be the second dive that falls down the bot lane. Beautiful stopewards as well for Abagnail, and it just kept going. They just kept going for that bot lane. And I've got huge question marks for Taxa in particular, because I wholeheartedly agree with you. Trundle into Zinzao is a pretty good pick. You can 1v1 the champion, and when you have a Rise and an Aphelios, all it takes is one pillar to take somebody's flash away. And I felt like Taxa has been a little bit invisible in those early game scenarios when he needs to be. possibly a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more vocal. And this is why I'm wondering again what is happening in the comms from the side of Astralis, because you saw it again. NYYRIKKI, every time they have a plan, they're like, you know what, our bot lane is a strong point. We're not going to deny this. We're going to make it completely obvious. You wanted to draft the Zeri, you can draft that. We're going to draft a really strong bot lane. We're going to put a Zinzal together with it and then allow Petoska to do whatever the heck he wants on the Tryndamere that has been permabanned so far. And honestly, it works. The strong bot lane snowballed ahead, and Petoska, honestly, is like, helicopter, helicopter, in the back line. And we mentioned it. It wasn't necessarily about Petoska finding the kills. When you split up Astralis, they seem to like lose control of anything they have taken so far. So I think that was his purpose. He fulfilled it. Unfortunately, we couldn't have this replay here, but the last fight before Baron, Petoska found himself in the backline. He's owned 3 members under opponent tower, whilst the rest of Astralis were being picked apart by NYYRIKKI. So I think mission successful.
There's one sentence that you told me at the beginning of this play.
Was it the helicopter?
No, thankfully it wasn't. When you lose so many games, you need to learn how to win a game. So a
I
team
think
that
they've forgotten
says,
how to win, yeah.
Yeah, this is so important. If you're doing really well on the scrims, and then you go to the official games and lose, you forgot how to win. And they need to get it back. That is a sentence that I never forgot, that Trouble told me. And I think Astralis need to remember that as well. But now, we need to look into the second game of the day. It's going to be JDXL versus Dusty. It's going to be a good one, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.